A vibrant world of young female creatives where imagination knows no bounds and self-expression reigns supreme. These innovative artists are pushing the limits of their craft, fueled by passion, inspiration and a desire to bring their unique visions to life. Through various mediums and artistic endeavors, they are not only honing their skills but also sharing their perspectives, emotions and experiences with the world. Now, let's delve into the creative journeys of young talented individuals. One is Ntsako Nkuna, who is a mixed media artist. Another is Kay-Leigh Fisher, who is a visual artist, curator and publisher. They join us in studio as we profile young women in the creative space in the month of August. Ladies, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live. Kay-Leigh, I want to start with you. Let's start regarding the visual space industry that you are into and how you also became a curator. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it was always my intention to be a curator, and then later I decided actually I should pursue being an artist, but being a curator helps you learn how to tell stories, which is important when you're trying to depict people, especially women, in your work, and you need to be able to tell stories about women. And I was interested in how idealizations are harmful to young women as they're developing and how that had affected me as I was growing up. And I wanted to create a better impression of our identity expressions and who we are, showing that we're multiple individuals rather than the perfect person that we always try to portray to the world. So I tried to do that in my work to show that we're constantly moving and performing and growing and we shouldn't be fixed in place.
Kay-Leigh touches on, cultural identity. What for you was your primary focus in your work, Ntsako?
With my practice, I'd say my primary focus would be kind of acquiring a deep understanding of our built environment as a way of understanding our society on a psychological level. And when I say built environment, I'm referring to man-made structures that are made with the intention of bringing people together. So you could consider the places we live in, the places we work in, transportation systems. And as someone who hasn't studied architecture formally, it's something I'm interested in because I engage with it in my everyday life, and I think all of us do. And the aim of my practice is to kind of bring architecture to the forefront and to have it be seen as something that has the power to impact our quality of life as a people.
How do different people receive your work and interpret it over the years, and you've seen how people receive your work? What has been your observation about that?
I think what stands out to people mostly would be my medium of choice. So I think they would be quite interested in how I engage with digital media, as well as welding, as well as screen printing. So it's quite an odd combination. But I think the materiality is something that draws people in and makes them question how they perceive the materials I engage with.
Speak to us about, Kay-Leigh, with your engagement, with your work from a curator space and from also, an artistic space. When you look at it and you say, this is the work that I curated and it's also, my work. What does that mean? What does that Kay-Leigh look like?
So for me, it's about planning ahead, which is what curators do, and approaching things with a sense of care. Because I'm dealing with people's bodies and images that they've put out there of themselves, I have to be conscious and respectful of that, which is also what curators do when they enter exhibition spaces. So in my work, I try to plan ahead. I try to be conscious of what stories are actually coming through with the images that I'm creating, and is it a true representation of who we are and who we're becoming, and what influence will it have on the young women and young men that will look at these images and think, do I see myself reflected in those? So for me, it's really also about being playful and experimental in the process. So I work with charcoal as well as oil paint, and both are extremely different and contrasting. One is very forgiving and one is very fixed in place, but it's about what you want the work to do and what you want it to say. And for me, throughout my practice over the years, it's been about adapting to that and also being conscious that I'm not just speaking about myself, but I'm speaking to others and trying to create a better impression of not being perfect, but being real, which is really so important today.
What then determines the medium you go for? Is it the message you're trying to tell? If you, for instance, decide, I'm going to go to charcoal with this particular image or with this particular body of work, what determines what you use?
I think I've been set in these mediums since varsity. I was greatly influenced by the work of Carl Nell and his approach to charcoal. But the idea of using oil paint for landscapes, I wanted to create a vibrant environment that is reflective of the real world that we live in, while also thinking about the climate change that we're currently facing and how these environments won't look the same in the years to come, but they need to be captured in that beautiful way that makes us nostalgic for something. And for me, in that way, choosing those mediums is a reflection of the environment that I'm in, and also the charcoal allows me to adapt and to move and to change things as I feel them. So rather not fix myself and the subjects that I'm using in my work in place.
And William Kentridge says, charcoal is very forgiving on white clothes as well.
Exactly.
Now, Ntsako, let's talk about material. Kay-Leigh talks a lot about material, and that's a big thing for you too. What then determines what are you trying to say, with the material? And for you, it's a big part of the work that you do, and architecture is huge in that, in how we interpret your body of work.
So I'm quite intentional with the materials I use because I have an understanding that people are quite sensory. And I think when I think back to a show I had, it was titled Stop Nonsense. And Stop Nonsense is understood as a South African colloquial term which refers to a concrete fence. So I think that term on its own kind of highlights how we are very physically aware of materiality and form. So I think from then on, I've kind of found ways to incorporate this materiality into my work.
And I mean, growing up in Soweto as well, there were 3 rooms, and I think they are still there. There are houses that are, joined together. I think they're still there. And it's how we interpret it as well, how those houses are together and what the government was trying to say. But artistically, as somebody who works with architecture and architects, how would you interpret that from an art point of view?
I think so far I'm engaging with architecture from an outside perspective, so I'm not exactly working with qualified architects.
Right.
So it's a view from someone who's engaging with it on a daily basis. And can you repeat your question again?
From somebody, yes, and you just said from somebody outside looking in. How would you interpret that? Those houses that are, joined together.
I think it kind of makes you question whether the people living in that space were considered. Like, are the houses joined in a way to kind of encourage interaction within amongst these people in this shared space, or are the structures just attached because of, I don't know, it could be financial reasons in terms of
the foundations.
The
foundations.
And Kay-Leigh, let's talk about, before we wrap up, the highlights so far. You're so young in this career, but what stands out, from where you started to where you are today? What stands out for you as a highlight?
For me, it's the power of manifestation, which has come through so much in my practice. I was saying, last year I manifested that I wanted to exhibit at an art fair, and earlier this year I exhibited at 2 art fairs. I exhibited at Investec Cape Town in Feb, and then again at the R&B Latitudes Art Fair just a few weeks ago. And it was such an amazing experience to also see yourself reach your goals and then have to come up with brand new goals, which is such a affirming experience for young artists trying to emerge in this industry, which is oversaturated with amazing artists also trying to do the same thing. So that tap also from Latitudes and the Anna Award is once again a push ahead to say we see what you're doing and we see others like you, and here is the space for you to continue growing, which we all appreciate.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming through. Time has run out, but those are inspirational women in the creative space this Sunday, the journey into dynamic realm of young female creatives, talking to us about their journey and the spaces that they explore in that journey. Ntsako and Kay-Leigh.